The new Alienware R13 and R14 desktops are absolutely insane. This generation of Aurora desktops has 87% better performance due to having a 50% larger internal volume on the case or chassis and utilizing a completely redesigned open-air design. Not to mention now has a redesigned AIO or water cooler for the CPU and now includes enough damn fans. They now have two NVMe M.2 slots on the motherboard. The motherboard is now PCIe 5.0. The Ethernet port is now rated for 2.5G, not single gigabit. Bluetooth and Wi-Fi have been improved. The power supply is no longer on some stupid hinge mechanism. It's now a compact power supply at the bottom of the case. And because the case is larger, they can now fit full-size graphics cards. That's right. No longer are they using custom in-house 3080s and 3090s, which by the way, their 3080 is only 10.5 inches long, making it the smallest 3080 on the market, even smaller than the Founders Edition. And this thing looks hot. There's now more controllable RGB LED zones, an acrylic side panel to actually show off your internals. Speaking of which, they now do from factory cable management with a cable tray on the right side that pops off. This is one of the first PCs capable of using DDR5 RAM. Speeds, baby! These things can get up to 4400 megahertz right out of the box. That's without overclocking. Speaking of overclocking, Alienware is encouraging you to overclock now. Why? Between their new case design, their Cryotech water cooler, their new quantity and quality of fans, and their new motherboard, they're tempting you to test the waters of cranking up that voltage. Technically, you don't have to crank the voltage to overclock, but anyway, they want you to overclock, basically. There's overclocking profiles in their pre-built software, just teasing you. Go ahead and speed up that GPU, CPU, and RAM there, big dog. Not to mention these bad boys are competitively priced. They're actually cheaper than NZXT, CyberPower, iBuyPower, or any of the other pre-builts selling similar components. In fact, if you were to build a PC right now, you would actually spend more than snagging an R13 or 14. I know I'm giving this thing a lot of praise. I don't get a single shekel thrown my way from Dell. Although I will say, in all fairness, doing my Alienware R11 content definitely gave my channel a little bump last year. Stick around to the end of the video. That's not because I need to get my view minutes up for the month or anything, but I have a little secret to share with you. A little surprise, if you will. A little peekaboo, how do you do? Pull back the meat curtains. Now, there are several more subtle changes with this new R13 and 14 design. I want to go over them here today. Let's do it. That wasn't me hitting on you. I mean, let's start the video, but let's do it. Alrighty, Stallions and Stallionettes, welcome to the Gamer Heaven. I am your host, AK40 Kevin. So a quick little background about myself and the channel. I do own an Alienware R11. It is fully case swapped. I have done about 20 videos on my R11, all the way from unboxing to things I love, things I don't love, fixing a lot of Dell's mistakes when it comes to their stock case or chassis as they call it, by adding a second intake fan, applying new thermal pads and paste to the 3080, adding a second NVMe for additional storage. Granted, I had to do that on a stupid little PCIe adapter, limited my read and write speeds. Why? Because the motherboard on the last generation, the R9-12, sucked. Not the case anymore. Now, if you are a current owner of an R9-12, they're still good PCs. However, a lot needs to be done for the cooling. A simple search for Alienware Aurora or Alienware R11, or shoot, even Alienware or Alienware Gaming PC, you will see a lot of my videos on the first page, sometimes the second or third result. Shoot, sometimes the first result if Google is really pushing my videos via the algorithm. But the easiest way for you to catch my Alienware content is to go to the playlist section of my channel dashboard, and there is an Alienware playlist with a ton of good content for you. So first things first, let's address the elephant in the room. I'm not talking about myself. I know I put on a little weight here, a little COVID-19, I guess you could say, but we're talking about cooling. The cooling on the Alienware Aurora R line was pretty trash and savagely degraded the performance, causing issues such as throttling and components degrading over time. But I do thank Dell because that helped me grow my channel, because a lot of Alienware Aurora desktop owners did a search. Hey, how do I get my PC to stop catching on fire? And I was the one to whip out my fire extinguisher and spray it all over the internet. That sounded not great. So this redesign comes off the heels of Alienware's 25th anniversary, so happy anniversary making subpar and mediocre PCs that are marketed phenomenally. Yeah, I'm allowed to rip on Alienware PCs. I'm an owner. But this new R13 and 14 changed the game. The new R lineup has 87% better performance than previous generations. That's not when the new iPhone has 2 extra nits of peak brightness, or when an auto manufacturer says you got 5 more horsepower this year, or you put an extra 1/8 of an inch on your peen. 87% performance gain. That is almost double the performance of the last generation. What are they basing this on? Well, benchmarking, you silly Billy. Thermals, sound, and FPS testing in games. What made this big change? They now have a semi-open air Cryotech chassis. As you can see, that acrylic panel in the front there is raised about 1/2 of an inch off of the front, which actually lets air in. However, it is still going to block out a fair amount of dust. It's always a dance on the fine line between resisting things like skin dander and pet hair, but then also getting airflow. You don't want a completely sealed up case either. Well, maybe you do. I sure as shit don't. So there's actually a usable but also cosmetically appealing honeycomb pattern in the front, also a honeycomb exhaust port in the top rear section, but this case is bigger. How much bigger? 50% larger internal volume, so it's no longer riding that fine line between a small form factor and a mid ATX. This is a mid tower through and through. This is partially because the case is not only physically bigger, but they also moved that stupid PSU swivel design to a compact PSU at the bottom. And because of this additional size, you can now fit a full-size GPU. That's right, a big old thick boy 3090. The CPU water cooler, otherwise known as an AIO or all-in-one, is now better. The radiator is 11% bigger, and the pump runs on a 6% higher duty cycle. Not to mention, it now has addressable or customizable 2-zone RGB. That's right, that Alienware logo as well as that circle around the outside. Yeah, you can change the color of that along with that exhaust fan. If you're not stimulated by this PC yet, just wait, it gets more arousing. The desktop now comes with up to 4 fans, not 2. They do run at a maximum RPM of 4K, but they are noticeably quieter. They're still not super quiet in comparison to something like Noctua or Thermaltake silent fans, so if you do want a very quiet rig, you are going to want to swap these bad boys out. However, if you do want peak cooling, I would stick with the stock fans as they run at 4,000 RPM, as where most Noctua fans run at 2. That comes down to personal preference. What are you prioritizing? Quietness in your room or thermal performance of your PC? I'm going to make a completely separate video on this topic in the very near future because I do have some rather curt words to say on the topic. This is a small change but very welcome. That screw in the back to remove the side panel now stays in, doesn't fall out and get eaten by your dog, so that's great. There is an optional acrylic side panel. It does cost a couple of extra shekels. However, if your PC is on your right side and you are going to see the internals, I would highly recommend popping for this option. If your PC is on the left and you see the right side of it on your desk, or you're one of those weirdos that put your PC on the floor, I would go ahead and save your money. There's also an optional magnetic cable management cover, which also has this honeycomb drilled out design, so airflow is not going to be an issue. And if you are one of those YouTubers or live streamers, I would recommend picking this bad boy up for that cable management. The right side panel now pops off and you have a cable tray, or the basement, or the ugly end as it's called in the PC building community, which, just looking at this video footage, it looks a lot cleaner on the inside than my R11 did. One note I will say is the RAM options they offer are pretty damned ugly. Not only do they not have RGB, but there's not even a black shroud over them. It's just that good old-fashioned green PCB or printed circuit board. It tickles me in the wrong spot, sweetheart. Now granted, I probably will end up swapping down the road to 128 gigabytes of nipple-squeezing RGB RAM, but it'd be nice if they offered the option of not having a parts bin special. Now, it's a very expensive parts bin, don't get me wrong. So that's the case or chassis. Now moving on to the MOBO or motherboard. The motherboard, as you can see, is black, not blue, which cosmetically not only looks better, but it's a dead giveaway that this is a completely different unit. You do now have a completely different suite of plugs and ports. Most notable is a super speed USB, which is rated for 20 gigabytes a second. I say again, 20 gigabytes a second. You will be uploading video clips of you and the old lady to OnlyFans at an astronomical rate. You also have that 2.5 gig Ethernet port. That's lickety split. That's fast. A fantastic front I/O with 3 3.0 ports, and the bottom 2 ports have a power share function, so you can charge devices while your PC is completely powered off, kind of like a gaming console. You do also have a headphone jack in the front. I like that. You do have the newest version of RAM incepted by the computer gods. Not only is it DDR5, it is the latest technology of DDR5, which currently, as of now, is 50% faster than DDR4 RAM. However, eventually that technology, that RAM port, will be up to 165% faster than what we become accustomed to with that DDR4. Also, each stick is dual channel, so 2 sticks is technically quad channel RAM, 4 sticks is ocho. That's 8 channel. This motherboard also does now have 4 separate fan ports, so you do not need to run a splitter off the intake and exhaust fans like we've been doing with the previous R PCs. And Dell said during their demo they did this to make it easy for people to swap out fans to different options if they want to. They actually said several times throughout their demo that they encourage people to get in there and swap out their components, you know, maybe buy a budget rig and then put in a new GPU when you get paid, or when you pull off that lick at the local 7-Eleven and stick up the poor dude working there. Don't do that. Don't do it. But they want you to be able to swap out fans and to get in there and dick around with your cable management. They actually encourage you to not only customize the hardware inside your case or chassis, but also overclock via software, which is really fucking cool considering it's a pre-built company. As for PCIe NVMe M.2 storage, that is a mouthful. They really need to, you know what, let's just call them M.2 drives. You now have 2 low profile slots. One's a 2230 size and one is a 2280, and these are rated for PCI Gen 3 and 4 by 4, not like a pickup truck. but 4x4. And there's also a tray or caddy on the top of the chassis for a traditional 3.5-inch hard drive for bulk storage. I would only use a mechanical hard drive for bulk storage. Even if you get one of those hybrid drives, I don't know, I put a little phlegm in that there. Those hybrid drives, I actually made an entire video about this because I owned a hybrid drive in my built PC. The speeds were closer to that of a mechanical hard drive than they were an actual SSD, and definitely not close to an NVMe. So the only thing I would use a traditional mechanical drive for would be bulk storage. If you're stashing a bunch of family pictures, or maybe you're a content creator and you have a bunch of raw videos that you want to stash away, but anything you want to access quickly, games, definitely your operating system, put that on an NVMe or at least an SSD. The last thing I want to touch on with these R13 and R14 PCs, the main primary difference is the R14 is a Ryzen CPU and the R13 is an Intel-based CPU. However, there are a couple of other subtle differences. I am going to make a separate video in the very near future going over all the differences between the two models and why the R13 is actually a better PC. You might think, well, bigger number, better PC, right? Not quite the case, and the R13 is quite a bit more future-proof. But if you get the fully decked out version of this PC with a 3090, 64 gigabytes of 4400 megahertz RAM, 2 terabytes of NVMe storage, and a water-cooled i9 12th generation Alder Lake, you're looking at about $4,700. However, I'm going to have another video with 3 things that you can do interacting with the representatives over there at Dell in the little chat window to actually knock the price down a fair amount. They've got discount codes to give. You just got to tickle them in the right spot. Trust me, I've done it twice now. Did I just say twice? That's right, you thought I was coming out as an Xbox gamer. Last night at 2:32 in the morning, local time, good thing I was off today for Martin Luther King Day, after getting extremely excited about this PC after doing a shitload of research, forums, YouTube, Jiddlybit Hub, all those websites that you kids visit when your mom goes to sleep, I hopped in a little chat with the representative over there and saw how deep I could drill the price with a couple of discount codes that they didn't even know they had until I told them that, hey, you're gonna do this for me. And I locked in an R13. Sounds like a motorcycle model, right? You might be on a Yamaha R1, sweetheart. I've got an R13. Yeah, she pulls hard in second gear, I'll tell you that. Not only is it just an R13, but it's the bee's knees and the mule's nips. It's the top tier, squeeze you in the nipples and twist unforgivingly, 12th generation Alder Lake i9, which will be overclocked thanks to this new 87% better thermal performance. I'm going to be cranking up the knob on it until I see sparks shooting off the motherboard. 64 gigabytes of that 4400 megahertz RAM. I'm going to overclock the RAM as well. In the GPU, I found a used 3090 on eBay for 50 bucks and shoved that in there. Just kidding. There's a 3090 in that bitch. I've been running with a 3080 in my R11 over here for the last year or so. And don't get me wrong, if I was strictly a gamer, 3080 is a fantastic card. Also, it's the non-LHR or limited hash rate model. So I'll probably keep that just to mine when hopefully the profitability of mining goes back up. Anyway, but whenever it comes to doing these screen recordings, as I am now a Facebook gaming partner and I upload VOD content or gaming videos to Facebook Gaming all the time, not to mention I occasionally live stream so I can actually chat with my community, the stallions and stallionettes over here. As soon as you launch OBS or Streamlabs, you're looking at your frame rate in games dropping about 15 to 20 frames per second, and that's just having the program open. Wait till you hit the screen record button. Not to mention, I edit my own videos in Adobe Premiere Pro or with DaVinci Resolve 17 in 4K with multiple tracks and color grading and whatnot. So having that juicy amount of fast RAM in combination with a 3090 will help me to render 4K video footage at an astronomical rate, which means I can pump out more quality content for you. Also, I'm claiming this PC as a tax write-off at the end of the year because it is more or less for the YouTube channel. I mean, I'm going to be getting my uses out of her for sure, but, you know, other than AK40 Kevin, this PC is primarily for gamer heaven to be a dedicated editing rig. They don't need to know what I'm doing with it on a Saturday night, though, that's for sure. So I am extremely excited. Not only is this going to be a very high-end PC, well, pretty much the highest end PC. That's the best graphics card on the market. That's arguably the best CPU on the market. Yes, AMD has some kick-ass shit. It's a beast of a rig. I got a really good deal on it. Don't get me wrong, it was still stupid expensive. Not going to talk about the number just yet, but it's a lot, but still actually less than you would spend if you were to lock in a 3090 on something like StockX or eBay or Facebook Marketplace or get stabbed on Craigslist. Try and actually get your hands on a 12th gen Intel CPU, because what happens is these pre-built companies have a contract with Intel and AMD where they get those first before you can just openly buy one at Micro Center or something to build a PC. Actually, we're gonna play a little game here. I hate to hit you with the saw.
You want to play a game? You want to win some free shit? You don't have to do anything weird like bend over, touch your toes I'll show you where the wild goose goes.
Yeah, this is a weird channel. Gonna give you a little hint real quick. The price is more than $4,000, but less than $5,000. The person that guesses in the comments section down there below, the closest to the actual out the door price that I paid with my discounts, but then with tax, this thing's starting to make a weird noise because it needs a little bit of water in her. But the person that guesses, I don't know if you can hear me too good. I do have a pretty strong noise gate. Well, it is a condenser mic, not a dynamic, so it should pick me up from over here. It just probably sounds like a hot bag of ass. There she is. You gotta feed her. Feed her the juice. The stallion or stallionette that trots down there in the comment section, aka the stable, and guesses the closest to the dollar amount that I spent on this PC in US dollars out the door. How big do I want to go with this giveaway? I don't want to give away one of the PS5 brothers. Maybe I will build a one-off custom controller with hydro dipping, face buttons, and everything on a live stream and give that away. I am an AIM Controllers partner, so maybe I can talk to my representative over there to generate a little code for a $350 gift card to AIM Controllers. That's always a good one. That's been my go-to giveaway here recently. Or I could give away my 3080. I'm sorry, I don't have the lung power for that. Shit. I'm thinking hella hard over here. Something. I'll figure this out off camera. My brain just fully Control-Alt-Delete shut down. Task manager, bring it down. You'll win something, and it'll be cool. It won't be like a stick of gum or a USB cable or something stupid like that. It'll be like a custom controller, something good, like a value of $100 US or more. If you enjoyed this video, slathering your fingers in butter and shoving your thumb on the like button will help it to get seen by more gamers and more potential Alienware R13 or 14 owners. Subscribe for more content like this. I will be covering a slew of Alienware Aurora R series content. Check out the playlist in the description below for existing videos. If you want to see me and the boys get nitty gritty with some gameplay, check me out at Facebook Gaming, where I am a partner. I do have a link to my merch store in the description below with this hot tie-dye tee that I'm wearing and that beach towel over there and a bunch of other cool things. And if you're in the market for a premium paddle controller, check out aimcontrollers.com, where I have a nice little exclusive discount code. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace, baby girl.